Hi, third graders. Welcome to math today. Hopefully you're prepared and you've got a pencil and your math journal with you. If you don't, you need to pause the video right now and go grab that stuff. And remember, bring that with you every day when we have math so that you're prepared. We're going to turn to page 54. And when you get to page 54, you're going to notice there's a beaver. Okay, there's no work on this page because I want to draw your attention to these strategy cards. We're going to learn how to use these strategy cards today, and then you're going to get to cut them out with a grown-up and keep them in a safe place, maybe in a baggie or an envelope or even a pencil box if you have something like that, so that you can practice your math strategies and your facts. This is another way to do it. These are like flashcards, but they're a little bit more intense, I guess I would say. They're a little bit more confusing if you don't know what to do with them. So that's what we're going to look at today. So you'll notice that at the bottom of this page, it's page 55, but it also has a letter, page 55A, and it goes all the way through the alphabet, so to the letter Z. So there are a lot of pages, and you're going to notice part of them are multiplication, and then part of the way through, they switch to division. So there are two sets of cards here, all right? So later on, when we're all done, you're going to get to cut these out and practice with them. This is another way for you to learn your math facts. Now, we haven't learned all of the numbers yet, right? You can challenge yourself if you want, or you could put those aside, maybe paperclip them together and save them for another time. So right now that you know where they are, page 55, I want you to close your math journal, and I want you to put it to the side, because your job right now is to listen and watch so that you know how these strategy cards work. Okay, now I happen to cut out just a couple of them, and I want you to notice something. Okay, here are some multiplication problems. 3 times 9 and 9 times 3, because you know that when we flip-flop those factors, we get the same product, right? So if I know my 3's, I could multiply them 9 times. If I know my 9's, I could do that 3 times. You solve it with whatever you know. Here's something else. Every multiplication strategy card also has a division strategy card that matches it. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But first of all, when you get to the point where you're going to cut them out, it's kind of hard to see because it's on my whiteboard, so let me move that out of the way. You'll notice that I cut around on the dotted lines. You're going to have to be very careful. But in the corner, there's a spot to snip them off, and that's because if you stack them all up, right, with that corner snipped off on the same direction, you'll be able to tell this is the front because the back looks very different. It's got some pictures, okay? There's some different colored ink on the back, right? So cutting that little corner off helps you to keep them in order, not necessarily the number order, but in order of the front or the back, all right? So I want you to look at this one right here. 3 times 9, right? Like I said, we can flip-flop the factors and get 9 times 3. Remember, your math book is closed right now. You're watching what I'm doing so that you know how to use these strategy cards. When I flip it over, look at what I've got on the back. Okay, I have the multiplication problem, but it's written in a different way. It's stacked on top of each other like we would see an addition or a subtraction problem. And let me move my camera down a little bit so that it makes it a little bit bigger. I'm going to pull my whiteboard back out because I'm going to want to write on this. Okay, so I've got my 2 multiplication problems right there, and I told you it's the same thing as on the front. They just stacked them a little bit differently, so it looks a little bit different. When I multiply 3 times 9, I'm multiplying 3 groups of 9, right? So I'm doing 9 plus 9 plus 9. You know that that equals 3 groups of 9. We've practiced that same idea from the very beginning, right? So here on that strategy card, it shows me those 3 groups of 9. Here's my first group. When I add my second group, I'm going to land on 18. When I add my third group, I'm going to land on 27. So it's the same thing as saying, here's my first group is 9. When I add 9 more, I have 18. When I add 9 more, I have 27. So it's showing me the multiples, right? When I count by nines 3 times, that's where I'll land. The other one, since it's the flip-flop, right, it's showing me something different. It's showing me 9 groups of 3. So that's adding, right, 3 plus 3. I have to do that 9 times. Here's my 4th group, my 5th group, my 6th group, my 7th group, my 8th group, and my 9th group. And I know that that is the same as 9 groups of 3. The product is the same, right? 3 plus 3 more is 6, plus 3 more is 9, plus 3 more is 12. I keep adding groups of 3. That's what this is showing me in the green. Here's my first group, my second group, my third group, all the way up until I get my 9 groups, because I'm doing 9 groups of 3. These are called multiples. That's where we land, are called multiples. Okay, so the front just shows me my multiplication problems without the product. And when I flip it over on the back, it's got my count bys, or my multiples, right, for each of those problems, because depending on which number's first, that's the number of groups, right, or possibly the number of rows. This is what we're counting by. On this one, we're counting by 3s. When you look at the bottom, you have something a little different, and that's called a fast array. You know what an array is, right? An array is equal rows. So here I have 3 rows. You can see 1 dot, 2 dots, 3 dots. And in each of those rows, I'm going to have 9. But this time, instead of putting dots in every row, I just put them along the outside. So that way, it's faster. That's what they call a fast array. Because remember, an array is an equal group of objects, right? And they're in rows and columns. And we've talked that columns are the same thing as saying how many is in each row, in one row. So here's my fast array at the bottom. Now, I told you, each multiplication card has a matching division card. So thinking about, I'm going to write this problem up here. 3 times 9, we know that equals 27. We flip-flop the facts, right? So there's part of my fact family. Now we know that we've got to have a couple division problems also to be part of our fact family. Because remember, just like addition and subtraction, multiplication and division are related. They're part of a family. So if I swap out my multiplication card, right, for my division card, you're going to notice some of the same numbers. I have my product, right, from this one, the 27, and I have one of my factors, but I'm missing my other factor. And remember, in division, we have different names for these parts. So when I turn it over, and these are called strategy cards because these are strategies, ways you can remember and learn your facts. Remember, when I do division, I have a big number that I'm sharing. I'm dividing equally. So for this one, 27 divided by 9, my answer or my quotient is 3. Okay, so 27, let's say I have 27 Tootsie Rolls, and I'm putting them in groups of 9. So I have a group of 9, another group of 9, and another group of 9 until I get to 27. Remember, I'm sharing them equally. So 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups of 9 is why I have the answer 3. 1 group, second group, third group. So I have 27, and I'm counting by 9s. On this one, I have a different factor, right? I still have 27 Tootsie Rolls, but now I'm going to put them in groups of 3. And I want to see how many groups I have. So if I put them in a group of 3, I'm going to do that until I get to 27. So here's a group of 3. Here's another group of 3, which makes 6 altogether. I keep adding my groups of 3 until I get to 27. So if I'm going to take these numbers, I'm going to make 27 divided by 9 equals 3. The answer, the quotient, is always on top. So my other problem is 27 divided by 3, and that equals 9. All these numbers are the same, right? I didn't add any different numbers. I only have a 3, a 9, and a 27. That makes up my fact family. I can do it for multiplication, or I can take my total, my big number, and create division problems. Now I wonder, do you recognize something in this column? What did they do here? I noticed they had 5 groups, and then there's a space, and then they put on the rest of their groups. Do you remember when we talked about, we know our 5s really well? I know 3 groups, or 3 groups of 5, right? 5 groups of 3 is 15. I know how to count by 5s, so we chunk it and take that shortcut, and we put them in groups of 5 like that. Then we add the rest on. The bottom is another fast array, but you'll notice it's a little bit different. For division, they just turned it to the side, right? We have our total in the middle. I can divide by 9 to get 3, or I can start at 27 and divide by 3 and get 9. So either way, right? This one had 3 rows, this one has 9 rows, but it's the same problem. 27 divided by 3 equals 9. 27 divided by 9 equals 3. So using these strategy cards is going to help you to practice your multiples, right? These numbers that we're counting by. And remember, every multiplication card has a matching division card as well. So your job today is going to be to cut out those strategy cards and start practicing with someone. There are some games you can play, right? And remember, you have to cut off those corners. That way, you know all of the fronts are together, right? And all the backs are together on the opposite side. Your job is to keep these in a safe place. Like I said, an envelope, possibly in a baggie, a pencil box, somewhere safe. If you lose them, you lose them. You just won't have them to practice. I don't have more to give you. Okay, so you want to keep them in that safe spot. Let's practice a couple of math problems together. So let's grab our math journal again. Okay, and this time we're going to turn to a different page. Oh, and here we go. Page 65. Oh, this always happens. It gets a little blurry. You'll have page 65 in front of you. This shows you one game you can play with the strategy cards. And on the back is another game you can play with those strategy cards. Okay, so that's in your math book as well. But I want to turn to page 63. And I'm going to give my camera just a second so that it can kind of catch up and not be blurry. Page 63, 6 3, 6 10s, 3 1s. Okay, and we're just going to practice solving a couple of these. So your job is to follow along in your book. You're writing down your answer as well. Okay, you're doing what I'm doing. Make sure you don't go ahead, because remember, when you come to small group with your math journal, we might do more problems from the same page. And if you've already done them, you're not going to be paying attention and listening and learning with your classmates. All right, so I'm going to hope that this evens out here in just a second. I'm going to read it, but I think I'm going to do my work on my whiteboard so it's a little bit bigger and you can see it, just in case it doesn't cooperate. My camera doesn't cooperate. So we're going to look at number 1. Okay, we're on page 63. It says the garden shop received a shipment of 12 rose bushes. They arranged the rose bushes in rows of 3 with the same number of bushes in each row. So I'm hearing words that I should know. Rows, right? Those are pictures that should look like an array. So if I have 3 rows and I'm going to have the same number of bushes in each row, I don't know how many bushes are going to be in each row, but I do know that I have 12 rose bushes all together. Okay, so let me see if I can wiggle this around and see if it will cooperate. If I have 3 rows, then I know I'm going to draw 3 lines like that for my rows. I also know that 12 is my total, so I'm going to write that off to the side. I have to share that total. You're doing this in your book. And why don't you write the word total underneath? I have to share that equally with my 3 rows. Okay? I might know my multiplication facts well enough that I know how many goes in each row, but I probably don't. So I have to take my 12 and I have to share one at a time until I use up all 12. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So what I just did was take 12, I divided it into 3 separate rows, and then I just count how many is in each row. I have 4 rose bushes, so I'm going to put bushes, not roses. 4 bushes in each row, right? When I have the total, I have to share them equally. Pretty soon, you'll start to know your facts, and you'll know, okay, if I have 12 and I have 3, I know my missing factor is 4. Remember, another way to solve it is count by 3s up to 12. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I did that 4 times. I could also write my multiples down. 3, 6, 9, and 12. Count those. 4 groups, 4 bushes. Let's try one more before I let you go. And then remember, you can cut out those strategy cards and you can look on pages 65 and 66 to do some practicing if you would like. Let's look at number 3. It says Ed needs 14 batteries. If he buys the batteries in packages of 2, how many packages of batteries will he need? So he needs 14, right? He doesn't need more than that. We're not trying to find out how many he needs. They tell us how many he needs. So we know that total. So if he's going to buy batteries in packages of 2, we're going to have to count by 2s until we get to 14. 2, 2 more is 4, 2 more is 6, 2 more is 8, 2 more is 10, 2 more is 12, 2 more is 14. I also, right, could have drawn them in groups of 2, but I would have had to keep counting in my head. So I liked using my multiples, right? So I know I had 14 batteries. I'm going to put them in groups of 2. How many groups do I have? Do you see what I did here? Oh, there's a big space there. Here's 5, and 2 more is 7 packages. That's my label, packages. Okay, I can count my 2s up to 14. And I'm going to do that, and I'm going to get 7. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. 7 count bys means 7 packages. All right, friends, enjoy cutting apart those strategy cards. Ask a grown-up first for some help, for a baggie, for a Ziploc bag, envelope, something to put them in. You need to cut on the line. So if you're not so great at cutting, ask for some help, okay?